12:30 at night, I quietly climbed out my bedroom window, landing softly in the dirt that had been weeded the day before. At 14 years old, this has become a regular event, sneaking out to meet with friends and do what we considered bad and tough. With my mates Scoop and Russ waiting just up the road, we took off into the chilly dark night, trying the doors of every car we passed to steal whatever trinkets we could find. Never really anything of value, but feeling as though our efforts put us into a class of bad boys to be feared. Go figure. After trying to finish my second pint of stolen milk, this was the early 70s after all, where people left money and empties out the front every night. We never stole the milk money, that just wouldn't be right. Breaking into the high school we hated was our objective. Strange how we never wanted to be there during the day, but drawn to it to create mischief. Walking up Legrano Street with large dark trees on the nature strip enclosing us in darkness and concealing three boys in dark jackets and duffel coats, talking quietly and walking as quickly as boys that age and size can. One of us, Scoop, glanced over his shoulder behind us and nudged both Russ and I at the same time. We both turned to see the dark, tall figure striding up behind us at a much faster pace than we were travelling. "Oh my God," I said, "it's the pacer." Both boys already knew this, as we've had previous encounters with this man, but not in the depths of a chilly dark night with no adults about. The pacer, as we had named him, was a very tall, dark-haired, troubled man who lived with his elderly parents not far up the road and opposite my house. He dressed very much like a college professor and constantly walked the streets taking large strides, eating up the pavements, his head hanging down, looking threatening and aggressive. My friends and I had witnessed times he had gone berserk, screaming and smashing things in the house when his parents had gone out for the evening, on another night when he had attacked someone that had crossed his path. Now he was coming up from behind us quickly with high, big, patent leather shoes, hitting the pavement with a thud every single time. Scoop and I nudged Russ to cross the road, and we quickened our pace on the asphalt, going diagonally to the opposite path, glancing over our shoulders as we went. 3 houses down, he started to cross too. Once around the corner, we started to run. About 5 houses on, we realized in our panic that we had entered a court, a dead end. The 2 houses closest to the end of the court were abandoned, as they'd been damaged from a fire. Other surrounding houses were dark with their owners either away or long asleep. We stood as deep into the court as we could, pushing our backs against the scorched remains of fences. With the cold late autumn winds whistling against our backs, blowing copper-coloured leaves down the road, we listened to see if we'd been followed. Then all at once the wind abated and we heard the unmistakable heavy footsteps. He appeared around the corner, and Russ let out a small shriek and tried to squeeze in behind Scoop and myself. He didn't break stride or even look up. The pacer was heading straight towards us, as if he'd walk straight through us and drag our souls into a world of homicidal darkness. Scoop ripped off a partially burnt picket from the fence. It smelt like a wet ashtray. I then did the same thing, with Russ following our lead. As the pacer shortened the distance between us by maybe 2 houses, Scoop yelled, "Get back!" The pacer kept coming. Now he was maybe 30 metres away with no change of pace. We started yelling in unison, "Help, help," hoping someone in one of the undamaged houses would come to our aid, but not a light came on. Maybe elderly people were too scared to intervene. We turned and ran into the burnt-out house whose fence we had been backed against. The ajar front door creaked loudly as we all pushed against it as one. Running down the passage through the debris of the Victorian weatherboard, we searched for a hiding place. The smell of ash and rotten wet carpet was strong. We had gone through missing sections of the fence to enter the house, but now we heard what could only be wrought iron gates swinging with a rusty squeak as they were thrown open. He was coming. Why? What had we done? Why? We ran into the kitchen where pots and wet Hessian plaster littered the floor. The wall where the oven should be was now gone. Charred remains on the floor. This must have been where the fire started. I thought to myself, wondering as well how time seemed to have slowed, and I could think about such things in the dire situation. Scoop opened the slim vented door to the still existing pantry and was grabbed by a scraggly large man yelling, "I'll kill you, I'll kill you." I could smell his breath reeking heavily of alcohol and God knows what. Even in the dim moonlight shining through the missing section of the roof, I could see his rotten yellow teeth. Without a thought, I hit him with the fence picket. The blow landed across his left side of his face, and I knew his ear must have started to bleed. He let go of Scoop and reached for his head where the picket had struck. The vagrant then dropped to his knees and started sobbing about being left alone and mumbling, "You bastards, I did nothing to you, why can't you just leave me alone?" The voice sad and wretched in its drunken hopelessness. Then, without warning, the vagrant lunged at me, arms outstretched with black putrid nails on his filthy hands, clawing from my throat. I stumbled backwards, tripping on some rotten, bulging carpet, dragging Scoop and Russ down with me. Then the moonlight was blocked by a looming figure. The pacer had arrived. He picked up the vagrant with one hand and bone-wrenchingly smashed him against the wall. Oomph was the sound that escaped from the vagrant's lips. As we rose to our feet, the pacer moved his face close to the homeless man's. We yelled at the pacer to release him and waved the fence pickets at him threateningly. That is when he turned his face to us, with a face as pale as a sheet, eyes as black as coal, and foaming blood, dripping fangs like a rabid dog. We turned in unison and ran through the front door, down the cordon, street after street, until we had climbed through my window and we were in the safety of my house. Believe this story or not, that is your choice. We never told anyone until today for obvious reasons. Least of all, who would believe us? We never ventured out at night alone again whilst we were still young and living in the area, in fear that the pacer was striding behind us.